All right, good evening. We are going to be learning Daf Lamed tonight, and as well Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. We have a blot and a half to go. I'm going to move at a pretty reasonable clip, but I don't want you to not hold me accountable. If you have questions, please, of course, ask. You can unmute yourselves. That would probably be the most efficient. If you have a question, please do feel free, and we will otherwise move quickly throughout the evening to make sure that you guys get to go to bed at some point tonight before 11, hopefully. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Chav Tes Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom, another Mishnah. Hamechabes haner mipnei shumisyare, mipnei nachrim, mipnei listim, mipnei ruach ra, mipnei chodesh yishan pater. Let's say that a person extinguishes a fire. One of the 39 malachos is to extinguish a fire, but they do so with an ulterior motive. They are not doing it because they want to put out a fire. They're doing it for a variety of reasons. They're afraid of non-Jews who are there. They're afraid of robbers. They're afraid of ruach ra. Rashi here points out that ruach ra is more of an emotional space. 3 lines from the bottom, end of the line. Haba alav kshe'eno roa haba alav ukshe'eno roa noach lo. He prefers the dark. Ibnei chodesh yishan, or someone who's sleeping. In all of those cases, the halacha is that you're pater. It's an isur derabanan to put out the fire under those circumstances. We've already learned about this principle called malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. You're doing the act, but you're doing the act for an ulterior motive, not for the primary motive. Similarly, kechas al aner, kechas al hashemen, kechas al apsila. What about these? You're not doing them for. That's not the reason why you're doing it. There we say you're chayev. If you have rachmanas, I'm blowing it out, but I feel bad for I'm happy that I'm saving the candle. That's already usur. That's already above the threshold. That's not malacha she'ena tzricha legufa anymore. That's just regular malacha. And other such examples, to save the oil and to save the wicks, you're chayiv. Rabbi Yossi argues, Rabbi Yossi potzer b'chulan, chutz min apsilim ibnei shusei pecha. He says that the only time you're going to be chayiv is in regards to the wick itself, because once the wick is charred, it lights better the next time. But with all of the other things, it is possible that you would be pater. That's the Mishnah. The Gemara here opens up, analyzing very quickly, and then we're going to get, for the rest of the day, the next blot and a half almost is going to be Agadata. Some stories you're familiar with, some not, but a lot of beautiful Torah and Hashkafa to learn this evening. Says the Gemara, top of Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, Midukatani Seifa Chayev, because when it came to trying to save the oil and save the candle and save the wicks, there we said Chayev Shmami no Rabbi Yehuda. That seems to be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, as we saw earlier in the Masechta, was of the opinion that malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is chayiv midoraisa. That even if you're doing an act for an ulterior motive, then you're still going to be held accountable. Okay. Reisha b'mai asikna. What if this whole Mishnah up until now is talking about the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is chayiv, that when you do something with an ulterior motive, that you're still held accountable. So then, what was the beginning case of the Mishnah when you were pater? That doesn't make any sense. If you hold the malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is chayav, like Rabbi Yehuda does, then what was the reisha of the Mishnah? So it says the Gemara, reisha b'maya sikna. What was going on in the first case? If you want to say the reason in the first part of the Mishnah why you were pater is because it was a chola sheyesh bo sakana, life and death. So then mutter mi baile. It shouldn't have said that you're pater. Look back at that Mishnah. Mechabes haner pater. Shouldn't have said pater. It should have said mutter. If it's a chola sheyesh bo sakana, life and death. Everything trumps life and death except for the big three. And if it was a person who was sick, but they were not really sick, they're not feeling well, they're lying down, but there's no life and death concern. So then chayiv chatos mi baile. Shouldn't have said pater, should have said chayiv. So which one is it? Says the Gemara, really the reisha was talking about a chola sheyesh bo sakana, a person who was life and death. Why didn't it say mutter? Should have said mutter, right? Because life and death. Answers the Gemara, really the ratio could have said mutter and not pater because it's a life and death case. But I did the misnei seifa chayev tani nami reisha pater. We like to have equivalencies in the Mishnais. It's easier to remember. Remember that all of the Mishnais were done bal peh. So because they were all done bal peh, they wanted to make it easier for people to remember the Mishnah. So they didn't want to do mutter and chayiv, they want to do pater and chayiv. So because in the case of the shemen, where you're trying to save the oil or save the wick there, Rabbi Yehuda held that you're chayiv because he holds malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is going to be chayiv. So in the reisha, you're going to be pater, really mutter. Why is it mutter? Because it's life and death. But we only said pater to make it equivalent to the seifa. All right. So now we're 6-7 lines down. Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. V'had Tani Rabbi Oshia. Hold on 1 second. We have a tosefta separate of our Mishnah. What does it say there? In bishvil hachola sheyishan lo yechabe v'im kava pater avalasser. There we see a different case. We said if there's a chodesh yishan, there we said pater avalas. We just got finished saying that our Mishnah is talking about a chodesh yesh bo sakana, and if it's a chodesh yesh bo sakana, it's mutter. How does this Tosefta say pater avalasar? Why is it pater avalasar? Answers the Gemara, because this Tosefta is not going like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds malacha she'en esricha l'kufas chayim. Hahi b'chol she'en bo sakana v'Reb Shimon hi. That there we're talking about a chol she'en bo sakana. It is an ulterior motive, and Reb Shimon was of the opinion that a malacha she'en esricha l'gufa is pater aval aser, and that's the din that we're seeing here. So again, contrasting Mishnayos, contrasting sources in the Tanaim. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda, and this Tosefta is like Reb Shimon. The Gemara here at the 2 dots, 8 lines down, presents the following question. A question was asked in front of Rav Nachman de Minoi. Mahu lechabos votzina denura mikame beisha b'shavsa. Am I allowed to put out a fire, to put out a candle in front of a person who is sick on Shabbos? The Gemara here is going to take a wild one amud deviation that seemingly has nothing to do with this question at all. Just remember the question because we will come back to it. The question is, what is the din about putting out a candle for the sake of someone who is sick? Pasach v'Amar, he opened up and said, Ant Shlomo, you're Shlomo the king. An chachmasach, where is your wisdom? Totally disconnected, non sequitur. An suchlesanusach, where's your seichel? Lo dayach shedvarecha sosrin divrei David avicha. It's not enough, Shlomo, that you contradicted your own father. Ela shedvarecha sosrim zeh. You even conflicted yourself. You have a contradiction of your own words. David avicha amar lo amesim yahaluka. David said that the dead people cannot praise Hashem. That's a contradiction between father and son. Not only that, but Shlomo continued. He contradicted himself and said, "Ki lekelochai hu tov min ha'aryeh hames," because the dog that is alive is better than the lion that is dead. So we have to figure out what's going on. First, the contradiction between himself and his father, and then the contradiction with Shlomo and himself. Lokashia, says the Gemara, this is not problematic at all, and we're going to navigate how all three of these psukim make sense. Ki lekelev chai. Is that where we are? Yeah. No, Lokashia, says the Gemara, this is not a problem. When did David say that dead people cannot praise Hashem? Hachi kamar. This is pshat. We should follow along here. A lot of very good musar for us. People should focus on being osek in Torah. Osek doesn't mean to learn. It means to work hard in understanding Torah. We are osek b'Torah. Kodem shiyamos, before we die. Shekevan shemeis, because once a person passes away, vatal min haTorah min hamitzvos ve'ein la'kadosh baruch hu shevach bo. Because once a person passes away, they are no longer able to learn Torah. They are no longer able to do mitzvos, and there is no shevach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when a person is dead. That's what the pasuk meant. Lo amesim yihalaluka v'hainu de'amar Rabbi Yochanan ma'idechsi v'mesim chovshi. That when people die, they're free. Kevan shemeis adam nasa chovshi min haTorah min hamitzvos. A person is then freed from the burdens. It's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. All of the opportunities we have right now is to increase our status with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be Meshabeach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every opportunity to learn, maybe we're feeling it more pressingly now, every opportunity to learn, every opportunity to do a mitzvah. The language of mitzvah is tzav, is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mitzvahs are not commandments in a dry sense. That is the method of the madness for us to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can only do that when we're alive, and we have to chaparayim. And that is what pshat is in the pasuk, Lo mesim yihalaluka. Udeka amar Shlomo v'shabeach ani esamesim shekvar mesu. What does that pasuk mean? That I'm praising those who have died. His father said that the people who have died cannot praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's pshat? Shekishechatu Yisrael b'midbar. When the Jewish people were chote in the midbar, Amar Moshe lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amar kama tfilas usachanunim lefanav v'lo ne'aneh. Moshe was banging down the doors of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please forgive the Jewish people. Below that, he didn't get an answer. But when he recalled the Avos, instantly HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, now you have my answer. That is pshat in the pasuk, that when there are mesim, that there are people who are mesim who can help us. That's the avos. V'lo yafe amar Shlomo v'shabeach ani es hamesim shekvar mesim. Isn't it beautiful, that pshat in the pasuk? This is answer number one to this pasuk. We're going to see three more. Davar acher, another pshat in the pasuk, that there is praise in death. Minhago shel olam melech basar v'dam gozer gzeira. If a king who's flesh and blood makes a decree, safek mekaymen oso, safek ein mekaymen oso. We don't know if it's ever gonna come to fruition. He's a human being. What can we say? Even if you want to say he's going to fulfill it, fine. But then they'll keep it while he's alive. But when he dies, they're going to uproot the whole thing. They're not going to keep any of it. The ilu Moshe Rabbeinu Gazar Kama Gzeros V'Tikin Kama Takonos the Kayamosem La'olam Ol Me'olamim. Even after Moshe has passed away, a lot of his Gzeros are still in place. We keep some of them today. Kriyas Torah during the week, we have a bunch of things that we have from Moshe Rabbeinu. So what do we see? That from the grave, posthumously, Moshe is able to be Meshabech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's shot number 2. Below Yafe Amar Shlomo V'Shabech Ani Asamesim V'Chulim. Third possibility in this pasuk, 2 lines into the wide line. What does it mean? Do for me something good, and my enemies will be embarrassed. Amar David lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shalom Mechol li al oso avon. Please Hashem, forgive me for my avera. What is he referencing? Of course, his avera with Bathsheba. Amar lo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, no problem. Machulach. Sometimes it's that simple to get tshuva, just to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for tshuva. Amar lo, aseimi os b'chayai. So David begs Hashem, can you please give me a sign in my life that you gave me mechila in my avera? Please let me see in my times while I'm alive. Amar lo b'chayecha eini modia. Hashem says, David, your sin was big enough. I'm going to give you mechila, but not during your lifetime. B'chay Shlomo bincha ani modia. How did it play out? In the life of Shlomo, I will let you know. Shlomo as Beis Hamikdash. When Shlomo built the Beis Hamikdash, Bikesh lahachnis Aaron the Beis Kodesh HaKodashim, as we know that there was a Kodesh, and within the Kodesh there was a Kodesh HaKodashim behind the Paroches. That's where the Aaron was kept. So Shlomo was ready to bring in the Aaron. Bikesh lahachnis Aaron the Beis Kodesh HaKodashim. Davku she'arim zebah. The doors wouldn't open. He couldn't get in to bring in the Aaron. Omar Shlomo Esrim v'arba Renanos v'lo neni. He said 24 tefillos, nothing, no answer. Pasach v'Omar Susha Arim Roshechem Inasu Pischei Olam V'Yevo Melech HaKavod. He said, let in the Melech HaKavod. Homiletically, of course, the doors thought that when he said Melech HaKavod, that Shlomo was referencing himself. So the Gemara says, Rihatu Basrei Lemivle'eh. The doors detached from their hinges and they started chasing after him. Amru, miuza melech hakavod achutzpah. You think you're the melech hakavod? Shlomo says, no, not me. Amar lehu, he said back to the doors, Hashem izuz v'gibor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's great, the one that's strong. Chazar ve'amar, and then he said the full pasuk. Shushayim roshechem uzu pischei olam yavo melech hakavod. Miuza melech hakavod. Hashem sabakos melech hakavod sela. So then Shlomo tried that approach. He tried 24 prayers, didn't work. He tried to beg the doors. And even with all the psukim said properly, afal pikein v'lo nen, and the doors didn't answer. Keivan she'amar, then Shlomo quoted the pasuk, Hashem Elokim, al tashay pnei meshichecha zachar lachasi David avdecha. Please, my father David, what hasn't he done? He's made mistakes, but what hasn't he done? Miyad nen. When we rely on our fathers, when we rely on our forefathers, invoking the name of those who are before us, that is what can help to pierce the heavens. Of course, and obviously, that is why we start out our Shmona Esrei the way that we do. Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. It's always about Zchus Avos, and there are even onshin that can be from Avos to children, and vice versa. The wonderful thing, Zchus Avos also can come from parents to children. So that's how that worked out. This is third pshat. Below Yafe Amar Shlomo v'Shabech Ani Asamesim Shekvar Mesu. The Hainu Dichsiv. This is what the pasuk says. This is pasuk in a reference to David HaMelech. And we're going to analyze this pasuk in pieces. Al kol hatova asher asa Hashem leDavid avdo l'Yisrael amo. Long pasuk. On the 8th day, he sent the people and blessed the king, and they went to their tents. They were happy. They were tov leiv, good-hearted. Al kol hatova, and all the good that Hashem did for them. LeDavid avdo l'Yisrael amo. Let's analyze this pasuk piece by piece. Vayelchu le'ohaleihem. What does it mean that they went to their tents? Shematzu neshoseim b'tara. They found out that their wives were tahora. How did they find out? Obviously, their wives told them. This actually hints to a din that is halacha l'maisa, that after a woman goes to the mikvah, she really should verbalize that the mikvah was a kosher experience. She should say, I'm tahora, not just in physical contact alone, but she should say something that indicates that the mikvah was tahora. I would say at the most it's a remez. That's not why it's quoted here. It's just that they found that they got back to their tents and their wives were all tahora. Smechim shenehanu miziv hashchina. They all benefited from being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were within the Ziv HaShechina. The Tovei Leib, what was it that they were so happy about? Everyone conceived that evening, and they all had a boy. Al kol hatov asher asa Hashem leDavid avdo. It's skipping the parentheses. Shemacha lo alo sa'avon. That part of the pasuk means for the good that Hashem did for David, that he got mechila on his avera. Uli Yisrael amo, and for the Jewish people, da'achil lahu avon diyom kippur. 1 year the Jewish people ate on Yom Kippur. Rashi here discusses the details. Take a quick look in Rashi, 8 lines from the bottom. Dibur hamaschal b'yom kippurim sha'achlu v'shasu b'chanukas habayis. They ate during the Chanukas habayis. When was this? K'dechsiv esachag shivas yamim v'shivas yamim. Based on the Gemara, Maseches Moed Katan Daf Tes, there's a comparison. It turned out that they ate on Yom Kippur. Here, the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, looking back, forgave them for that. 8 lines from the bottom of the page. And what did Shlomo mean about the pasuk with the dog? That was where Shlomo was contradicting himself. We gave all the pshatim in regards to the pasuk of V'shabeach. What does it mean? The pasuk with the dog is that a live dog is better than a dead lion. Oh, crazy story. Check this out. Udika Amar Shlomo. Ki lekelev chai hu tov min ha'aryeh v'meis. What's pshat in that pasuk? That a live dog is better than a dead lion. Kid Rabbi Yehuda Mara. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mara. Mai dechsiv hodeini Hashem kitzi umidas yamai mahi edu amachadalani. This is a pasuk where David says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen, can you please tell me when I'm going to die? Amar David lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shalom hodeini es kitzi. Let me know, when is the end of my life? When is it going to be? Says the Gemara, Amar Lo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said back to David, we don't tell people when they die. No one knows. It could be at 120 years Hashem, full, happy, healthy lives. Could be sooner, Rahman al-Litzlan. People don't know. Umidas yomai mahi. Just tell me the number of years. Don't tell me the actual dates that I'm going to die. Just tell me the number of years. 180, 120. What's it going to be? I don't tell people years. I don't tell people that information. Just tell me at least a day of the week. This is a reference, but this is not what the word is. Machad al ani is just it's understood by the Meforshim that way. That's what Rashi says. 5 lines from the bottom. Rashi, Machad al ani be'eze yom ani chadal. What day will I become less? Uvatel min ha'olam. 3 lines from the bottom. Amar lo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, fine, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. The Shabbos Tammuz. You will die on the day of Shabbos. Hashem said to David, Amos be'echad v'Shabbos. Give me one more day. Already bargaining. He's already bargaining for the loss that he knows is looming. Amar lo, I cannot do that. A very important guideline. We've seen this guideline before since we started Daf Yomi. Amar lo kvar higia malchus Shlomo bincha. You're not allowed to overlap your son's malchus at all, and his malchus starts on Sunday. You cannot have one malchus of one king overlap with the malchus of another king, even by 1 second. Almost be'erev Shabbos, fine. Let me at least die on Shabbos. What does he tell? Why does he want to die a day earlier? Because it was a tircha on Shabbos, and the mace could cause for hilchos muktzah, as we'll see shortly. It's a problem. So he preferred to die on erev Shabbos. Omar lo, such beautiful ashkafa for Talmud Torah. Kitov yom bechatzei recha me'elef tov li yom echad she'ata yoshe be'osek b'Torah. 1 day of your learning, David HaMelech, 1 day is better than 1,000 olos that will be brought in the base of Mikdash of your son Shlomo. Very powerful. The powerful elements of Talmud Torah being highlighted here today in today's daf. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said back. You cannot die on a Friday. You have to die on that day. That 1 day of Talmud Torah is kedai. Turning to the top of daf Lamed Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Kol Yom Shabsa. If he knew he was going to die on Shabbos, he was going to make sure that he learned stark on Shabbos. So this is what happened. Kol Yom Shabbos, on the full day of Shabbos, beginning to end, Hava Yasi V'Gars Kol Yom, learning all day. Hahu Yom De'Boy L'Menach Nafshi, and the day that he was supposed to die, Kam Malach HaMaves Kamei, the Malach HaMaves got near him to kill him. Below Yochel late, below Hava Pasek Pumei Girsa. He wanted to kill him, but he wasn't able to kill him because he was constantly learning. If you don't stop learning, Kadosh Baruch Hu can't take you. Even if it extends the malchus, as we spoke about, the malchus of Shlomo would change if David would not stop learning. Omar, what the Malach HaMav said, what should I do? How am I supposed to do my job? Today is David's day. It's Shabbos. It's the end of his life. He had some type of orchard behind his house. So the Malach HaMav went into the backyard. And he went and he shook one of the trees. What, you think shaking a tree is going to pull David HaMelech away from his asmada? His asmada is much better than ours. A truck drove down my house with flashing lights. Every one of my family ran to the window. We're like little kids chasing a squirrel. David HaMelech, the great, he doesn't get distracted by trees. So one of the Meforshim here point out that he was concerned that someone might have been violating Shabbos and they were in need of tochacha. So he had to get up. There's a mitzvah. There's a yid. His neshama's on the fence. If he Rachmana Litzlan does an Isser Daraisa, it could be Chayiv Karesh B'dei Shamayim. Very dangerous, very dangerous. So he got up. Nafak L'mechze, he got up to see what was going on. Have a Salik B'darga, he got up on the ladder. Ifchiz Darga Mituse, and one of the rungs of the ladder slipped out from under him. Ishtik, he stopped learning for that moment, implying, of course, that he was learning on the ladder. And then the second he stopped learning, V'nach Nafshe, and then the Malach HaMavis killed him. What was Shlomo's Yes.
Wouldn't we say that he's doing a mitzvah then? So then he should be protected.
Yes, but in that one moment it says ishtik. He was totally silent. He was falling down from the ladder. So in that one moment, he slipped on the ladder. Oh, you're asking a different.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to be learning. He's going to do a mitzvah to so then he should be protected.
Good question. I don't know. Rabbi Robinson gave a shir a couple of years ago about this, about shluchei mitzvah in a nizaken. And I remember just part of the tagline is that it's not as clear as we always think that it is. That shluchei mitzvah in a nizaken, there are some parameters. Was someone else sharing?
It wasn't a ladder; it was stairs, and the stair went down, gave way.
Okay. Yeah, that's still, to Jeff's question, it's still a question of shluchei.
He's not a shliach. He's not a shliach,
Right.
though.
He's not a shliach. He didn't start doing the thing.
Not everyone doing a mitzvah is protected like that.
If a shliach is going to be considered a person who's protected, alachas kama v'kama, I would have thought the person doing it on his own. But I don't know the answer to the question. Not sure. It's a great question. Great question. I'll try to look into it later if I have time. That will not be tonight, but I will try later. Good question, Jeff. So says the Gemara, that's how he died. Ishtek v'nach nafshe. So what's Shlomo's response? Shlomo's a tremendous ben Torah, so he asks two very important halachic questions, one seemingly unrelated to the other. Shalach Shlomo lebei medrasha. Abba meisum mutal.
Didn't we have a case? We had a case earlier with Shiluach HaKan, where the boy climbed up the ladder and he fell down and he was killed. And it says by the Orach Yamim.
Right.
So there could be something else also.
For sure, there's something else here. Jeff's question is a valid question and has a real answer.
Right.
There's two types of questions. There's questions that are not valid, and then there's questions that are valid and require an answer. So his is in the second. It needs a real answer, and I just don't know what it is. So the Gemara here continues that Shlomo sent a question to the base medrash. My father is mutal b'chama. Remember, he was back in the orchard. It was sunny out. It was Shabbos. So his father was mutal b'chama. It's not covered on mace. What should he do? Question number two. The klavim shall beis abba re'evim. What should I do with the dogs of my father that are starving? Shalchule, they responded back to him, Chatoch nevela b'hanach lifnei klavim, cut up some nevela, cut up some meat for the dogs and give them food, no problem. The avicha, and in regards to your father, and this is quoted in halacha, for your father, what should you do? Hanach alav kikar otinok betiltalo. You should put something on top of him that you're allowed to carry, and then you will be able to move the mace as well. So let's say you put a loaf of bread, something on it, that's the example, or a tinok, or a child, I don't know if that would be extremely traumatizing. Maybe today we would not do such things, but nevertheless, if there's a mace that's in a compromising place on Shabbos, one is allowed to move the mace mace himself or herself as muktzah. We'd be allowed to move the mace if we put something on the mace prior to moving. This touches on a halacha from the world of muktzah called basis. Basis is something that is on Shabbos that already has a scenario. Let's talk, for example, about leaving your talis bag, leaving your tefillin in your talis bag intentionally. And you just say on Shabbos morning, I'm just going to take out my talis, even though my tefillin are in there. So that's basis l'davar ha'asar l'davar ha'mutar. There you have two things: one that you're not allowed to move, one that you're allowed to move. You're not supposed to do that on Shabbos. But where a scenario comes up like this, which is not what you planned, nobody planned for David to die, but now he's mutal b'chama. What should we do? So then we use a leniency of adding something that's a davar ha'mutar to put on top of the basis l'davar ha'asar in order to be able to move. And that's quoted in Shulchan Aruch and Yoredea. So that was what the Gemara answers here. V'lo yafa amar Shlomo. Now we have shot in the pasuk. V'lo yafa amar Shlomo. Don't we see the insight now? How deep and rich this pasuk is? Ki lekelev chai utov min ha'aryeh, the lion, my father, from the lion hames. Remember what we started with. If you look back on the previous page, we started with, and again, this all jumped off the page because it wasn't an answer to the question. I'll just read the question for you. 6 lines down from the top of Daf Lamed Aben Aleph, we asked the question. The question was asked by Rav Tanchum, to Rav Tanchum Dimin Noi. What do we do about a fire, about a candle in front of someone who's sick? It says the Gemara, here we are on the top of Daf Lamed Amud Beis, and we are approximately 12 lines down. Le'inyan she'ela d'she'ilna kad mechon ner keruya ner v'nishmasa shel adam keruya ner mutav techaba ner shel basar adam mipnei nero shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's better to put out the candle that a human being made. namely the candle itself, than to put out a candle, a flame that a Kadosh Baruch Hu made, namely the neshama. So therefore, yes, of course, the halacha is that if it's pikuach nefashos and turning off the candle is going to be helpful in that way, then one should most definitely put out the fire. That's perfectly permissible. That brings us to the 12 lines down or so on Daf Lamed Amid Beis. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bereder of Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Dera Bikshu Chachamim Ligno Sefer Kahalas Mibnei Dvarim Shedvarav Sosrin Zeh Zeh. The Chachamim initially wanted to bury Sefer Koheles. They did not want to include it in the canon. Our Tanakh would have been one book smaller. Says the Gemara, why was it not, in fact, buried? Answers the Gemara, because in the beginning it teaches us something critical about Torah, and in the end it teaches us something critical about Torah, and presumably those are just bookends. Everything in between must have also taught us something meaningful about Torah. Says the Gemara, what is the benefit for all that he will toil under the sun? Amar debei Rav Yanai, what's pshat in the pasuk? Tachas Hashem shude'ein. Under the sun when he's alive. During this world, you're right, your amelus total is almost nothing unless you're doing things for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But kodem l'Hashem yesha, but before the sun came out, there was Torah. Because we have a principle in the Gemara that called Istakil be'oraisu bara alma. That first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked at the blueprint, looked at the Torah, and from that he fashioned the Torah, fashioned the world, all from that Torah. That's why, of course, we know that the idea of olam, the word world, which is what we see, is rooted in the word ne'elam, which means to disappear. And the Maharal Miprag writes that when the world was only in the frame of tohu, when it was only in the esoteric and the spiritual realms, everything was perfect. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to be mitzamtzein himself, he had to minimize what he was by creating the physical. Every physical feature is a limiting feature. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was hidden into the bria. That's why the olam is the same word as ne'elam. So says the Maharal. And that's what it means here. Kodem shemesh yeshlo, that but prior to the actual sun rising, there was always a Torah. That's what we learned in the beginning of Sefer Koheles. What about the end? Sofo divrei Torah d'chsiv, sof davar hakol nishma elokim yira. Ves elokim yoreh. Which one is it? I forgot. Elokim yoreh. Let me just make sure that I'm not quoting this incorrect. Es Elokim Yira, that we should fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ves mitzvos. Sav Shemor, we should keep his mitzvos, Kizeh Kol Ha'adam. Apologies about that. Says the Gemara, My Kizeh Kol Ha'adam. What's shot in the pasuk that this is all of man? A couple of answers the Gemara gives. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kol Olam Kulo Lo Nivra Ela Bishvil Zeh. The only reason the world was created is for a person to keep mitzvos and have Yirah Shamayim. There is no other purpose. Everything else is commentary. That's if there's any other reason that we are alive, and we think that it's that's wrong. The only reason we're alive, according to Rabbi Eliezer, is for the opportunity to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to do mitzvos and to have Yirah Shamayim. Second shita, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana Amar Shakul Zeh Keneged Kol Olam Kulo. If you put on the scale the whole creation of the world, you put on the other side of the scale Torah and mitzvos, that's when the world perfectly evens out. And the third shita, Shimon ben Azai, the last of the short lines, Lamed Amid Beis, Shimon ben Azai Omer va'amri la Shimon ben Zoma Omer lo nivra kol olam kula ela litzavos lazeh. Just to accompany this person, the whole world was created to accompany one person who keeps Torah and mitzvos. Today is the day of Musar about Torah and mitzvos. Umay dvarav sosrin zeh. What were the contradictions within Koheles? Let's take a look. Ksiv, it says first of the long lines, Tov kaas mischok uksiv l'schok amarti mehalel. It seems in one case that kaas is better than schok, that anger is better than happiness. It seems in another pasuk that schok is better. Another contradiction. Ksiv v'shabachti ani es hasimcha. I'm praising happiness. Uksiv l'simcha ma zo asa. And simcha is not good. So we have two contradictions, and we need to answer both of them. Lo kasha, neither of them are problematic. Tov kaas mischok. When is anger better than happiness? Tov kas shekoyes HaKadosh Baruch Hu latzadikim b'olam hazeh, mischok shemesachek HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'rishonim b'olam hazeh. By a tzaddik in this world, sometimes it's better to see a little bit of kas, but it's much better for the tzaddik to see that. But it's for the Rasha, mischok shemesachek HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'rishonim b'olam hazeh. The person only has schok and sichuk, so that's not a geshmak experience in this world. It may feel that way, but that's not how it will play out best in the next world. What is that? Mehalel. What does that mean? Okay, that level of schok is in the next world. The shabachti ani says simcha. I'm praising happiness. What type of happiness do we praise? Zo simcha shel mitzvah. What about the next type of simcha? Well, the simcha mazo asa. What's pshat in that pasuk? Zo simcha sheino shel mitzvah. And that is when we see that if a person has a happiness, and we have the pasuk to reference the simcha mazo asa. What was the value of this simcha? So the Gemara's answer to that is nothing. It was a simcha she'ena shel mitzvah. It wasn't that simcha is quote unquote not valuable. And from the fact that we see that you need simcha shel mitzvah lalamercha, what do we learn from here? She'en shchina shora lo mitoch atzvos. The shchina could never dwell around us from sadness, v'lo mitoch atzvos, not during laziness, v'lo mitoch schok, and not during lightheadedness, v'lo mitoch kalus rosh. Schok is laughter, excuse me. V'lo mitoch kalus rosh, from lightheadedness, v'lo mitoch sicha, not from conversation, conversation that shouldn't be happening. It's not talking about Torah. V'lo mitoch dvarim b'teilim, from wasting our time. Ella, when does the Shechina show itself? When are we able to generate an environment where the Shechina can be shora? That is mitoch dvar simcha shel mitzvah. Shenemar be'ata kichuli minagain v'yakin again haminagain v'tehi alav yad Hashem. When we have the minagain, that simcha, that happiness, that music, that is when we are zocha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A little bit more than halfway down. Amar Yehuda v'chein l'dvar halacha. Same as true. You want to be kohen halacha, has to be done with simcha. Amar Rava v'chein l'chalam tov. If you want to try to make your dreams good, you should have simcha in your life. The more simcha you have, the better dreams you will have. Eini. Is this true? Is what true? Is it true that the simcha should always be in place? Hold on. Sometimes we have Mara Makolos that indicate that simcha is not always the right tone. When is that true? Maybe in learning. Any student who sits in front of his Rebbe, and his lips are not dripping with bitter, meaning fear, then he will be burnt. More over. Al tikri more over, ela mar over. The bitter. Al tikri shoshanim, ela sheshonim. Not the roses, but the learning. Meaning there should be a certain intensity when it comes to our learning. And it's not roses. It's not sitting there in front of the Rebbe all giggles and having a good time. It should be a very focused and intense experience. So how does that play out? Lokasha says the Gemara, Habe Rabba, Habe Talmud. The Rebbe can be lighthearted, but the Talmud is obligated to have that heaviness to him. And then the Gemara gives a second answer, and if you want, I can give you another answer. Habe Rabba, both are true of the Rebbe. Lokasha, Hamakamed de Liftach, Hala Basar de Pasach. Hamakamed de Liftach, one is before he starts shir, and one is after he starts shir. Kihad de Rabba, Makame de Pasach, Lahu, the Rabbana, Namar Milsa de Bdichusa. He would grease the wheels a little bit. He would open up shir with a joke, say something funny, get people laughing. We use this as a pedagogy all the time in education. When we're educating people, there's a certain buy-in that we want to generate. Sometimes it's done with fun. Sometimes it's done with a joke. This is in all the pedagogy books of education. And that's certainly there's some value to this, to start with the Milsa Divdichusa. So that's how he would start. Ubadche Rabbanan, everyone would have a good time. So, but after that happened, Yasi Be'emsa, then he would sit up straight and he would Be'emsa with fear, Pasach B'shmaisa, then he would start teaching Torah. And that's the story of Koheles, that we wanted to bury it. We found Torah in the beginning, Torah in the end. We found contradictions and we solved them. The Af Sefer Mishlei Bikshu Lignos. Even the Chachamim were tempted to bury the Sefer of Mishlei that's filled with wisdom. Shahayu Dvarav Sosran says that even there were steers. Why didn't they bury Sefer Mishlei? Amre, he answered as follows. Sefer Koheles. Lav Ayininin Vashkechina and Taima. We looked over there, we found some answers to the contradictions. We should do the same exact thing here. We can find the answers in Mishlei. We could find the answers. Hachanami le'ainan. Let's look into Sefer Mishlei and try to solve the contradictions that we are seeing. Umay Dvar Sosrim says, what were the contradictions in terms? Ksiv al ta'an ksil ke'evla. So don't answer the fool. Uksiv anek ksil ke'evla. So you should answer. Says the Gemara, Lokashi habedivrei Torah ha b'mile de'alma. When there's a ksil who's asking you questions in Torah, you should answer it. When there's a ksil who's asking you questions, maybe you should not answer him. So that's how we solve the contradiction in terms for Sefer Mishlei. Crazy story. This person came in front of Rabbi. Omar Lei. This is a crazy taina. Could you imagine saying this to anyone? Forget about the Gadol Hador, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was so holy, he never put his hands below his waist. That's how he got the label of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He never put his hands below his waist. Holiest Jew you can think of. And this guy, Chutzpah Yak, he walks over to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Omar Lei. Ishtecha, ishti, by the way, your wife, she's really my wife. Ubincha bana. Your children are my children, namely your kids are mamzerim. Imagine, it's a crazy thing to go to the Gadol Hador and say such a brazen comment. Amar le, hey, by the way, do you want a drink? He's like, wow, if that's all I needed to have a cup with the Gadol Hador, sure, no problem. Shasa upaka, he took a drink and he exploded. So maybe don't mess with the Gedolei Hador. That's what happened with Rebbe and this person. Happened again a generation later. Rabbi Chia was a Talmud of Rav / Rebbe. So maybe a little bit more than one generation, a generation and a half. Amar Rabbi Chia, Ahanya Leitzluse. Sorry, skipped the line. Hahuda Asa Lakame de Rebbe. No, did not skip a line. Amar Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia said, "Ahanya leitzlusa leRebbe to lo l'shavye b'ni mamzeri." I say this prayer of my Rebbe,
you did skip. You did skip.
I did skip a line. Yes,
Yeah,
I did. Thank you very much. One more time. Thank you. I got it. Thank you. My apologies. Hahuda asa lekame de Rabbi Chia amar le imcha ishti. This is even a little sharper. Your mother is my wife. Ve'ata b'ni. You're the mamzer. You're my child. Amar le ritzoncha shetishta kos shel yain. Would you like to drink a cup of wine with me? Shasa upaka. He drank the wine and it killed him. His stomach exploded. Amar Rav Chia ahanya leitzluse leRebbe dulo l'shavye b'ni mamzere. I say this prayer from Rebbe to ensure that my children should not be mamzerim. The Rebbe ki hava matzle. This should sound familiar. We say this every day in davening. The Rebbe ki hava matzle. When he would daven, he would add the following paragraph. Amar. From those who are brazen. We've, of course, added to that since then. But Rebbe said this as a tefillah to make sure that kids would not become mamzerim and people would not have time to die. Now, earlier we said that by a ksil, that when it comes to divrei Torah, we should answer. What does that mean? Divrei Torah maihi. What are examples of answering the ksil, answering the fool about divrei Torah? Ki adi yasiv Rabban Gamliel, the kadarish. Rabban Gamliel made a drasha. And he said, "Asida isha shetele b'chol yom." Women are going to have children every single day. Shenemar haras v'yoladas yachdav. They're going to have a lot of children. Ligleg alav oso Talmud. The ksil, this Talmud who was not the number one kid in class. Ligleg, he was malagleg. He kind of mocked a little bit and made fun of. Amar ein kol chodesh tachas hashemesh. You're going to change all the laws of nature. So there, that's divrei Torah that we respond to the ksil. What do we say to him? Amar le. I'll show you in this world an example of what I just said. He went outside, he showed him a chicken that's laying egg after egg after egg. Bisu, another case that came up similar to this. There are certain trees that are going to bear fruits every single day. There's going to be a branch and it's going to make fruits. Just like there's an anaf, a branch or a leaf that's going to have fruits every day. We're going to have fruits every day. Same exact thing. Maybe it's the same person, maybe it's a different person. He was mocking his Rebbe. How could you break all the laws of nature? So he said, Amar le, here you again, we engage the ksil in Torah. Engage the ksil in Torah. Amar le, bo reich dugmas, let me show you an example. Nafak achve. He showed him the caper bush that has a variety of different products of the tree that one seemingly grows after the other. An example of the drasha that Rabban Gamliel was talking about. Visu Yasiv Rabban Gamliel v'Kadarcha. See the Eretz Yisrael shetotzi gluskos ukli melas. There are things that are going to grow that are fully produced already from Eretz Yisrael. You're going to go there, you'll see a fully baked granola bar. Everything's going to be all set for you. So then the Talmud said, "Oh, Shnei he pisas bar ba'aretz." That's what the pasuk says. That has this idea that there's going to be fully cooked food. Lig alavoso Talmud v'amar ein kol chadash tachat hashemesh. How could you say such a thing? Amar le bo re dugmasan bolamazen nafak achve le kimihinu pitrios. He showed him these growths of fungi and of mushrooms that were fully grown, ready to eat. Ve'achle and melas nivra bar kora. There were certain trees that grew in full form. There were actually leaves that were worn as clothing. And those were examples, these are the examples that the Gemara gives, these few examples of how we are supposed to respond to a ksil. But when a ksil is cheppering you about things that are not Torah related, you have every right to ignore, and sometimes it may not even be helpful to not ignore. I was sitting at a table 15 years ago, and we were having a conversation at the table about whether or not a Kadosh Baruch Hu was authentic. In my early years as an educator, I used a dangerous word and said, there's a proof for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was not the right word. And it made this person flip a lid. He became totally unreasonable. And at that point, I needed to end the conversation. It was not valuable anymore. That was my error as an educator. You learn best by fire. There is a breaking point. But in general, when a person's asking a question, we should try to engage them if that question is Torah. Tanu Rabbanan, we are now going to learn some of the most... Yes?
I want to add in the Shasav Palka, where it comes from is from the Mimes Sota.
From the Mesota, the Mesota, absolutely.
Calling the child
certainly reminiscent, because there we had a chashash that the woman was doing something incorrect and the child could have been a mamzer. Yes, right. Definitely a reference. Correct. Thank you. We're going to now learn a number of stories that are world famous, that we've heard of many times, and we'll close the Gemara today with the 6 questions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks someone who, after they pass away and they are entering Shamayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us a 6-question test. That will be the close of the daf today. And that will bring us to the second to last line of Lamed Aleph. Lamed Aleph, let's get going. Tanu Rabbanan, last line of Lamed Amud Beis. People should try to have the humility of Hillel, and they should not try to be strict like was Shammai. There were 2 Jews, Shehimru Zezeh. They were making a bet with each other. Turning to the top of Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph. Amru, kol mi sheyelech liyachni es Hillel yital daled meo zuz. Anyone who can get Hillel upset, 400 zuz on the table. He lays down the 4 bills. All yours. Amar echad mehem. All right, I got this. You're in. Ani akni tenu. I'm going to drive him crazy. Also, Ayom Erev Shabbos. It was Erev Shabbos. Hillel chafaf es rosha. They would scrub their hair that day, taking a bath. We learned a couple of blot ago that we have a mitzvah to soap up with warm water on Erev Shabbos. This past Friday, I hope we all had a little bit of kavanah and memory of that. It's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan to do that. It's very appropriate to do that on Erev Shabbos. So Hillel, of course, was keeping that in chafaf es rosha. So this guy halach v'avar al Pesach Beis. So he walks by Hillel's house. Amar, in a disrespectful tone, Mikan Hillel. Mikan Hillel. Is there someone here who has the name of Hillel? So Hillel put on some clothing. He wrapped himself up in some clothes. But he left the shower to answer a shaila. Amar lo b'ni, with some warmth. My little tzaddik, ma tameh vakesh, how can I help you? Amar le she'ela yesh li lishol. I have a question to ask you. So he thought already the Rebbe would have been annoyed because he pulled him out of the shower. Amar le she'al b'ni she'al. Look at the extra warmth of Hillel's lashon. Please, please ask my son, please. Mipnei ma roshein shel bavlin sigal galos. Why are the heads of the Babylonians a little bit funny shaped? They're a little bit round. Omar le b'ni she'ela gedola sha'alta. You've asked a tremendous question. Today I ran a Q&A session for the OU with Rav Mordechai Willig Shlita at Yeshiva University. Every question I asked, what a gewaldic question. What a gewaldic question. He's probably gotten those same questions 500 times in the last 2 weeks. That's the midah of Hillel, is to make the person who's asking the question feel good. And that's exactly what it did. You asked a great question. That's a great question. Why the shape of the head of the Babylonians was, okay, this is the midah of those who are on the sun. You make the people feel good. First of the middle width lines. Amar le b'ni she'ela gdola sha'alta. What's the answer? Mibnei she'ein lahen chayos pikos. Their doulas, their midwives are not so talented. They're not so good at their job, and the heads come out funny shape. Halach ve'imtin sha'achas. So this guy let Hillel get back in the shower, and he left him for a little bit. Sha'achas is not literal. He didn't take a 3-hour shower. He's going to interrupt him more than once. So he's back in the shower. Chazar Rabbi, Mikan Hillel. Number 2. Nisatef yatzali kraso. Hillel said, yeah. He puts on his robe. He comes outside. Amar lo b'ni ma tameh vakesh. How can I help you? Tzaddik, what can I do to help you? Amar le she'ela yesh li lishol. I have a question for you. Amar le, the same warmth. No change in language. No frustration entering Hillel's mindset at all. Amar le sha'al b'ni sha'al. Ask away. Mipnei mainin shel tarmudian trutos. Why are the shapes of the tarmudian? Their eyes are a funny shape. Why are their eyes a funny shape? Amar lo b'ni she'ela gedola sha'alta. What a gewaldic question. Why do the Tarmudim have funny shaped eyes? And the Gemara answers, they live among sand. So Kadosh Baruch Hu made their eyes in a way where they either Hashem made their eyes in a way where they were shaped to prevent sand from getting in, or their eyes were rakos, as Rashi here indicates, because sand was getting in their eyes and causing for some swelling, whatever the case may be. All right, this guy's getting frustrated. He saw that he was getting frustrated and not Hillel. Halach ve'imtin sha'achas. He left the Hillel again and tried a third time. Chazar ve'amar Mikan Hillel. Where is this guy whose name is Hillel? Nisatef yatzali kraso. Hillel gets out of the shower for the third time. in his robe, all wrapped up. Amar le buni, same lashon. Ma tam mevakesh. How can I help you? Amar le she'eli yesh li bishul. I have a question for you, Hillel. Amar le sha'al bini sha'al. Tell me how I can help you. Mipnei ma raglehen shel Afrikim rechavos. Why are the legs of Africans wide? Just cheppering at Hillel to see if he could try to get under her skin. Amar le bini, what a gevaldik bam kasha. She'ela gedola sha'alta. Beautiful question. They live in thick, muddy areas, and their muscles are just bigger. They needed more muscles to wade through the waters. Omar Lo, last-ditch effort. He says to Hillel, Shelos harbe yeshli lishol. Let me see. I have so many questions to ask you. I'm going to try to overwhelm you. Maybe you might get upset. Hillel wraps himself up nice and neat, takes a seat in the chair across from him, and says, Omar Le, kol she'elos sheyesh lecha lishol she'al. Any question you have for me, please ask. I'm happy to help. Amar Le, atahu Hillel shekorin oscha nasi Yisrael. Are you the Hillel that people refer to as the nasi of the Jewish people? Amar Le, hey, that's me. Taka, that's my job. Amar Le, matahu lo yarbu kemoscha b'Yisrael. If you are the one who is the nasi, I hope nobody is replicated to be like you. Hillel says, with calm, Amar Le, bini, my son, mipnei ma. Why are you so upset at me? Amar Le, because you made me lose a bet. Mipnei shavati al yadcha daled meho zuze. Zuz, I lost 400 zuz because it's impossible to get under your skin. You're way too calm. Amar Le, have a zahir beruchacha. People always have to be cautious and conscientious about their ruach, about their spirit, about their tone, their emotional tone. Kedai hu Hillel. It's worth it for this little guy Hillel, quote unquote. I'm not saying it about him. It's being referenced about himself. Shetovat al yodal daled meo zuze v'daled meo zuze v'daled meo zuze another 400. Hillel lo yakbid. I'm not going to get upset. I'll answer any question you want. A beautiful musar on midos. Taner Rabbanan, Ma'isa ben Nochri, we're about 1/3 of the way down, a little bit more than 1/3 of the way down. Taner Rabbanan, Ma'isa ben Nochri, Echad sheba lifnei Shammai. A guy came in front of Shammai. Amar lo, kama Torahs yesh lachem? How many Torahs do you have? Amar lo, shtayim. We have 2 Torahs, Torah shebechsav and Torah shebal peh. We've got 2. Amar le, shebechsav ani ma'amincha, b'shebal peh ani ma'amincha. I'm willing to give you that the book that's written is divine, but this whole oral tradition is ridiculous. I'm not keeping a single word of it. Gaireni amanah shetelamdeni Torah shebechsav. I want you to convert me on the condition that I'm willing to keep everything in the Torah Shebechsav, but nothing in the Torah Shebal Peh. Shammai, what does he do? Garbo, he kicked him out with a brusque response. Get out of here! What are you talking about? If you don't keep the Torah Shebal Peh, you're not keeping anything. Look at the world that we live. 90% of what we do is referenced, it's framed in Torah Shebal Peh. Ba'lifnei Hillel, the same person walked in front of Hillel, same argument. How many Torahs do you have? Gaireh, Hillel converted him on the spot. Before Shamir pointed out, he didn't actually convert him on the spot. He had to make sure he was the real deal. We have to ask people a few times. We have to test them. They have to learn Torah to make sure that when they, in fact, are mekabel upon themselves mitzvos, it wasn't immediate. But the point is that Hillel was way more open to hearing it. Yom Kama, the first day Hillel teaches him, Amar Le, Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. Those are the first 4 letters of the Aleph Beis. Lemachar Apichle. The next day he reversed them. Daled Gimel Beis Aleph. He reversed them on him. Omar Le, the Nachri, the convert, the potential convert, said, wait a minute, Hillel. You didn't say that yesterday. Yesterday you said Aleph Beis Gimel Dalet. Now you're saying Dalet Gimel Beis Aleph. Which one is it? Get your story straight. Omar Le, doesn't that show that you're relying on me, on the Torah Shebal Peh? Lava lai didi kasamach. Aren't you relying on me? De'al peh nami smoch alai. You should rely on my words as well. He gave this person musar, and the person embraced it and became a taka from Jew with both the Torah Shebechsav and the Torah Shebal Peh. The Torah Shebechsav is not understandable. It's incomprehensible to us without the Torah Shebechsav. There's no 2 ways to understand it. Tefillin, we saw just a blot ago. Tefillin are black. They're square, they're leather, there's shins in it. We wouldn't know any of that just from the Torah Shebechsav. We need the Torah Shebal Peh to explain it to us. Shchita, the pasuk in Dvarim says that you should shecht kasher tzivisicha, as I have commanded you. Look through the entire 5 books of Moses. You're never going to find shchita there. It's found in the Mishnayos and Chulin. It's found throughout Shas. But without Torah Shebal Peh, we would never understand Torah Shebechsav. And that was the musar that Hillel gave this guy. Shuv Ma'isa ben Achri Echad sheba lifnei Shammai, another story of a non-Jew who came in front of Shammai. Amar Le Gaireni Amanah shetelamdeni kol haTorah kula kshani omed al regel achat. He says to Shammai, teach me the whole Torah on 1 foot. He had this kind of stick, like a yardstick, and he smacked the guy and said, "Get out of here! What are you? You're so flippant about Yiddishkeit. What are you talking about?" The same guy walks in front of Hillel, Hillel, and then Hillel was willing to convert him. Omar lo, what message did Hillel give him? Famous words of Hillel. What is it that Hillel taught him? The Allah sane lechavrach lo saved. That which you hate to your friends, you should not do. This is the inverse of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Why did he phrase it that way? There's a whole bunch of commentaries here. Just one svara is that it's easier for us to understand what we don't like sometimes than what we do. I really don't like when someone treats me that way. It hurts me. The physical pain is less than the emotional pain. You're hurting me emotionally. I could never do that to somebody else. I just heard today from Rav Woodlick that these are the days of Magefa. And the days of Magefa, these are the days that we have to work on our midos more. He said two things. Magefa, we have to work on our midos, and we have to work on Lashon Hara, Ben Adam Nachavero. This is mamash a mitzvah d'oraisa, to fulfill the mitzvah v'hafta l'recha kamocha, is just to do what other people will like and to not do what other people won't like. It's a kiyum mitzvah saseh for us to try and do those things. So here's after that, he says to the ger, if someone doesn't like what if you don't like something that happens to you, don't do it to somebody else. Zohi kola Torah kula. This is everything. V'idach zil gemor. V'idach, the rest of it, pirusha is just commentary. Zil gemor, just go learn it. Everything else is commentary. Treat people nicely. This is the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And famously, it's called Gadol B'Torah, referenced in Rashi al Torah in the name of Rabbi Akiva. Another story, middle of the page, 2 dots. Shumaisa b'nach re'echad shaya over achore beis hamedrash. V'shama kol sofer shaya omer ve'ela begadim asher ya'asu choshen ve'efod. A guy was walking by the Beis Medrash. He heard out of the window. I used to work at Aish in the old city. We used to hear the kids in Zilberman's chanting psukim through our windows. It was beautiful. Little kids saying psukim. The guy heard this. He heard this pasuk. These fancy garments with a kucha, just beautiful, unbelievable clothing. Amar halalu lemi. Who wears these clothes? The guy said. Amar, the kid said back, it's the Kohen Gadol. What are you talking about? Amar, the Kohen Gadol. Amar oso nachri be'atzmo. He said to himself, I'm going to go, I'm going to convert, Kohen Gadol. No, I'll get the chashu begadim, all of the 8 of them. I'm going to wear the tzitz, it's going to be beautiful, everything, I'm going to wear them all. So that's what the Gemara says. He wanted to become a Kohen. Balifnei Shammai, Omar le Gaireni al Menashe Tisimeni Kohen Gadol. Of course, we know Shammai's wiring. He's not going to tolerate this even for a moment. He hit him with the same yardstick. What did he do? Of course, Lifnei Hillel. And what did Hillel do? Gaire, he converted him, no problem. Omar le, wait a minute, you want to become the Kohen Gadol? Kluma midim melech elamisha yodeh tachsisei malchus. How could you become the king without knowing all the rules, all the guidelines, all of the processionals that kings need to know about? You got to sit down and grab a daf Gemara, figure out what it means to be a king. Lech lemo tachsisei malchus. You got to go learn the halachos. Oh, so he did. Halach v'kara. He went and he grabbed the sefer. He started learning. Kevan shehigia v'hazar hakarev yumas. That a person who's a zar and he is doing something that a kohen gadol does, he's eligible to be killed. Omar le mikra ze al mi ne'amar. Who is that talking about? So Hillel answered cleverly. Omar le afilu al David melech Yisrael. Who's a zar? He's a Yisrael. He's not a kohen. You have to be a kohen to be a kohen, and you're a ger for sure. You're not going to be a kohen. Nasa oso ger kal v'chomer ba'atzmo, and he made the following tushtel on his own. He made the following kal v'chomer. Uma Yisrael shenikru banim lamakom. The Jewish people who themselves David HaMelech is referred to as banim. We're all referred to as banim lamakom. Umitoch ahava she'ahavam, the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu with which He loves us. Kar lehem b'ni b'chori Yisrael ksiv alehem hazar b'karev yumas. If even by those that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves so much, we have a din of hazar b'karev yumas. So then Ger, Hakal, this newbie, he's just converting to Judaism right now. He's coming with his staff, he's coming with his bag of clothing. Alachas kama v'kama pashut that I would never be able to be a Kohen Gadol. But he was upset because Shammai didn't even tell him that. You should have at least told me that I shouldn't have even bothered because I can't even become a Kohen and I would kill me if I were to do those things. You should have brachos that are poured all over your head. Now that I've converted to Judaism as Stama Yid, as a Yisrael, you brought me under the Kanpei Ashchina. What a beautiful privilege to be a Yid. Yomi, at some point, these three people, these three stories were with unique individuals. The Shammai Hillel people, the Ger who came over to Shammai Hillel were three different people. They all went out to lunch together. Amru, Kapta Nusan Shel Shammai, Biksha Latardenu Min Ha'olam. With the strictness of Shammai, we were almost removed from the world. On Visanuso Shel Hillel, but with the humility and with the midos of Hillel, Kiravtanu Tachas Kanfei Ashchina. It is that midah that changes people more than anything else. When I was in a Kiru program called Ner Le'elef about 15 years ago, someone asked the following question: what is the single most important midah you need to help other people become from? And the answer was very simple. It was the sincerity of loving people, just making sure you care about them, that they know you love them. You don't need all the tricks. You don't need all the Aish articles. People just have to feel love. That's the most powerful tool. 2 dots, 10 lines from the bottom. Last sugya for tonight, but a sugya that we will probably not forget. Amar Reish Lakish, my dechsiv, what does the pasuk mean? This pasuk says, Reish Lakish is a reference to the Shisha Sidrei Mishnayos. Emunas, when the pasuk says emunas, you need faith to be a farmer. Zeseder Zeraim. This teaches us brachos demai peya, all the peya first. Brachos peya demai, all the sugyas there about the ground. Itecha zeseder moed. Itecha timing. It's all about seder moed, Shabbos and Psachim and Eruvin. That's seder moed. Chosen Rashi here says it's speaking about Yerusha, Zes Seder Nashim, about having children and all the laws therein. Yeshuos, about saving people, Zes Seder Nezikin. I have to make sure people are protected and people are safe. Chachmas, there's a special type of wisdom that it takes to learn Seder Kochim, Zes Seder Kochim. Vadas, what is the last one? Zes Seder Taharos. Ve'afilu hachi. But even if you learn all Shisha Sidrei Mishnayos, all of Shas Gemara, and you have it clear, but even if you have all of that, you owned it. It's a kinyan. But Yiras Shamayim hi otzaro. What actually is the storehouse is Yiras Shamayim. If you don't have the storehouse in which to put that shisha, the shas that you're learning, it's not kedai. Amar Rava, super powerful Gemara. The shah shemachnis and adam ladin. When a person is brought to judgment after a person passes away, please God, after 120 years of a happy, healthy, productive life filled with Talmud Torah and mitzvos, Omrim Lo, they ask 6 questions. Number 1, not did you eat on Yom Kippur, Shabbos? Simple. Nosasa ben asata be'emuna. Did you believe in me when I said that I was koveya, your parnasa? It all has to be done be'emuna. You saw that you got a loss here. You saw that you got a gain there. All of it was me, says the Karesh Baruch Hu. Kavata itim l'Torah. Question number 2, did you set aside time to learn Torah? Rabbi Robinson, I heard him say this a number of times. Here, the word kavata itim in Torah does literally mean, did you set aside time? But he said, Rabbi Robinson said that sometimes the word keva means to steal. Did you steal time to learn when you could have done something else? Did you take those opportunities and use them to learn? I'm terrible at this. When you have an extra 5 minutes, what do you do? What's your default? The default of our time should be Talmud Torah. Kavata, you have to steal that time. Question number 2. Question number 3, asakta, the period of a rivya. Doesn't ask if you fulfilled pru or vu. Doesn't ask, how many kids you had. Did you try? We're not in charge of everything. We can do our piece. We can get married. We can, within a halachic framework, try to have children, following the halachos of nida carefully. Did you try? Question number 4. We're mamish on the cusp right now. Tzipisa liyeshua. Were we looking forward to the Yeshua? Were we really, really waiting? It's probably more real now in our lives than it's ever been. Tzipisa liyeshua. We are waiting. We are waiting with impatience that Mashiach should come and end this plague and all of the galus, for sure. This is question number 4 that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will ask people b'yom hadin. Pilpalta b'chachma, did you get involved in understanding the deep wisdoms of the Torah? Havanta davar mitoch davar, question number 6, were you able to extrapolate? It's a style of thinking. Havanta davar mitoch davar, could you understand something from another thing? If the halacha in case A is A, and the features of case A and case B are similar, then maybe I can apply the laws of case A to case B. These are the 6 questions, but says the Gemara, even if you answer in the affirmative to all of them, if you have Yiras Shamayim, then that will be the warehouse in which we can store all of our successes. All 6 questions, all 6 of them, our storehouse is Yiras Shamayim. A man says to his worker, I need to save up some food. Please go take a large volume of of chitin, of wheat, and go put it up in the attic. Halach ve'e'elalo. He took it and he put it up there. All of his gains, all of his hard work, he put it up in the attic. Amar lei, iravta li bahen kav chumtin. Did you put in the sticky? There's a little glue that they would put in there to make it all stick nicely into a package. So Amar lei la, the shaliach said, no, unfortunately I did not. Amar lei mutav im lo he'elesa. Without yiras shamayim, without the glue to hold it together, it came out that it wasn't even worth it. Now, of course, we know al mitzvos, that's not true. Al mitzvos, every mitzvah. This is the model of Chabad through and through. Every mitzvah you do is another brick. Every mitzvah you do gets us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Absolutely true to the nth degree. Every mitzvah that any yid can do is wonderful and powerful and beautiful. But if we're looking to have a storehouse that is stored up perfectly, the otzar is Yiras Shamayim. And Yiras Shamayim is a very difficult mitzvah to fulfill. One of the ways that we can start is just focusing on that one pasuk we say after Natilas Yadayim, Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem, and try to spend a little bit of time focusing on it. Yiratzon, that will give us a tremendous aliyah in our Yiras Shamayim and allow the shas that we are learning to be stored in the otzar of Yiras Shamayim so that it will be a true kinyan. We'll pause here and pick up tomorrow night with another blot and a half. We are now 2 lines from the bottom on Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful night.
Now, how about
9 o'clock tomorrow?
Yes, 9 p.m. tomorrow.
supposed to end with a joke?
Not after that, sorry. Your Shemaim's a little too serious.
You're a Shemaim joke, you know.
And I'm not such a jokester to start with, so maybe some of the funny guys, maybe some of the funny guys on here could throw it in as they see fit.
You can start with one next tomorrow night.
Milsa b'dichusa. Try. Have a beautiful night.
This face.